At some point, something changed. Maybe you noticed it gradually, over days or weeks. Maybe there was a single moment that made you stop and look more carefully. Your jumping spider was doing something it had never done in the beginning, something different from what it did around strangers, something that happened only with you and only after enough time had passed. You may not have had the words for what you were seeing. You may have told yourself it was coincidence, or that you were reading too much into it. Spiders don't form attachments. Spiders don't have preferences. That's what most people believe. But researchers who have spent years studying Phidippus regius, the species most commonly kept in homes, have documented something that challenges that assumption at every level. These spiders develop measurable, consistent behavioral differences toward individuals they have spent time with. Not preferences in the vague emotional sense. Preferences in the precise, observable, repeatable scientific sense. There are 7 of them. 7 specific behaviors that jumping spiders show toward the people they have completely accepted and almost never toward anyone else. Welcome back. Subscribe if you're new here, because this channel exists to give you the science behind the things you've already noticed. And today's video does that in a way that might make you look back at the last few months with your spider very differently. By the time we reach number 7, you may realize your spider has been showing you something you didn't know how to read. Behavior 1. It comes to you. Not because you offered food, not because you startled it toward you by accident. It was on the other side of its space, and it moved toward you, deliberately, without any obvious external reason. In controlled studies, jumping spiders exposed repeatedly to a specific individual show consistent approach, behavior, toward that person that they do not show toward unfamiliar individuals. The familiar person enters the visual field, the spider orients, and instead of retreating or holding position, it moves closer. This is the foundation that all the other behaviors build on. The approach says, I have assessed you, and I have decided that moving toward you is worth more than moving away. Not every spider does this quickly. Some take weeks, some take longer. But when it starts happening, when the spider you've been carefully not pressuring begins crossing the space between you without an obvious reason, that is the first signal that something has been decided. Behavior 2. It grooms itself in front of you. Jumping spiders maintain their eyes obsessively. The anterior median eyes, those large forward-facing lenses, must be kept clean to function, and a spider with dirty eyes is a spider that cannot hunt, navigate, or assess threats accurately. Grooming is not optional, it is survival maintenance, but it is also incompatible with active threat processing. When a jumping spider enters a state of heightened alertness, when something in its environment has been flagged as potentially dangerous, the grooming stops. The body freezes in an assessment posture. The eyes lock on. Grooming only resumes when the spider has determined that the threat level is low enough to tolerate the temporary vulnerability of having one leg in front of its face. When your jumping spider grooms in your presence, it is telling you, in the most direct biological language available to it, that you are not a threat. Not that you used to be a threat, and it has suppressed that response. That you have been filed at a fundamental neurological level as something that does not require threat posture at all. You are safe enough to clean its eyes in front of. Behavior 3. It does not move when you do. This one is easy to miss because it is defined by an absence. You shift in your chair, you reach for something, you stand up, and your spider, which used to retreat or flatten at any sudden movement, simply stays where it is. Jumping spiders have a deeply wired sensitivity to motion in their environment. Their secondary eyes, which collectively cover nearly 360 degrees, are built to detect movement and trigger an orient and assess response. For unfamiliar large animals, the assessment tends to go quickly toward threat, and the spider moves away. But familiarity changes the response profile entirely. The motion is detected. It is always detected. But the identity attached to it overrides the threat calculation. This is you. You move like you always move. The stored pattern matches. No response necessary. The stillness your spider shows when you move around is not indifference. It is the result of hundreds of small moments where it processed your presence and concluded, this one is not a threat. It knows how to factor you in. Behavior. 4. It eats in front of you. Feeding is a moment of vulnerability. A spider focused on prey is a spider whose attention is divided. Its primary visual field is occupied. Its body is committed to a task that takes it briefly out of full environmental awareness. In the wild, that window of vulnerability matters. Jumping spiders are prey as well as predators. Feeding while exposed requires a level of environmental safety assessment that comes before the first bite. Spiders in captivity will often refuse to feed or will carry prey to a hidden location when they do not feel fully secure in their environment. A spider that eats in the open while you are present and watching has made a specific calculation. You are not a risk during vulnerability, not a risk during the moments when it cannot fully monitor you. If your spider has ever eaten while you were right there, and especially if it has ever taken prey directly from your hand, it placed you in the category of things that are safe to be vulnerable around. Behavior 5. It chooses to be near you, not in its enclosure because it has no other option. In a free-roaming situation or during supervised time outside its space, it ends up near you. This is distinct from the approach behavior of number 1. The approach is active movement toward you. This is something quieter. Over time, when given options, the spider's ambient resting location drifts toward wherever you are. It settles on the surface closest to you. It positions itself in your vicinity when it could be anywhere else. Research on environmental preference in jumping spiders has shown that they develop associations between specific spatial locations and specific experiences, including the positive associations that come from regular exposure to a non-threatening familiar individual. Your presence, over time, becomes a feature of the spider's comfortable environment. Not the only feature, but one of the ones it gravitates toward. The spider that ends up near you has filed your vicinity as a place worth being. Behavior. It raises its front legs toward you. The raised front leg display in jumping spiders has a complex behavioral vocabulary. In prey contexts, it is part of a stalking posture. In threat contexts between spiders, it can be a warning or challenge signal. In courtship, it becomes part of an elaborate visual performance. But in interactions with familiar humans, researchers have documented a different version of this behavior, a more relaxed, less directed front leg raise that appears to function as a social engagement signal. The spider sees you, registers you, and raises its legs not to stalk, not to threaten, not to court, but to engage, to respond to your presence in the most expressive physical way available to it. It is, as far as can be determined, the closest behavioral equivalent a jumping spider has to acknowledging you. When your spider raises its front legs toward you and looks at you, it is doing something it does not do toward walls, toward objects, toward the parts of the environment it has cataloged as background. It is doing something it reserves for things that warrant a response. You warranted a response. Behavior. 7. It stays when you touch it. This is the last one because it is the most significant. Not because touch matters more than the others. All 7 are meaningful. But because this behavior requires the spider to override what is, for most arthropods, a deep and automatic response to physical contact from a large animal. Jumping spiders have fast escape reflexes. They can accelerate from 0 to running speed in milliseconds. Physical contact from something large is, in the absence of any other information, a threat signal that triggers that reflex almost automatically. Almost. A spider that has completely accepted a person will stay. Not always, not through anything. But in the calm moments, when you move slowly, when it is resting and you make contact, it stays. The reflex fires and is overridden by something else, by the stored information that says, this is that person. This one is not a threat. Stay. The staying is not nothing. For a creature with a nervous system built around rapid escape, choosing to remain in contact takes something. Something that has been earned over time through consistent and careful presence. If your spider has shown you one of these behaviors, it has told you something. If it has shown you several, or all 7, you are not just someone who shares space with a jumping spider. You are someone it has accepted, specifically. The way it has assessed the rest of its world and found you to be one of the things worth staying near. Some people live with animals for years and are never fully let in. You were let in. You may not have realized it was happening, but it was. Behavior by behavior, assessment by assessment, the spider filed you into the part of its world that doesn't require threat posture. That is what acceptance looks like at 8mm scale. And now you know how to read it. Which one was your moment? Which of these 7 behaviors was the first one you noticed? The one that made you pause and think that maybe something between you and your spider was different than you'd expected? Tell me in the comments. The stories people share in response to this question are some of the best things on this channel. I'll see you in the next one.